Welcome back to go again.
Honey, we need to chat.
Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Honey, We Need to Chat.
I knew it.
I have a button.
I knew it.
I've got a button, and it's good.
Ferguson
it is glorious.
Is going to attack your feet.
Yeah, our cat is going wild. Ferguson, Michael Jordan Keeble, control yourself. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. This podcast is all about the importance of communication in a relationship. We believe that when communication dies, bad things happen. So we want to encourage you, as we encourage each other, to be prioritizing communication in that relationship, to be learning different ways to communicate, learning how the other person receives communication, all of the things. So that's what we do in this podcast. We are so pumped to have you here. So thank you so much for that. And Ferguson is in trouble.
Yes, welcome back. We are going to be discussing an important topic today.
Yeah, it's something that is relevant to us. So we really try and bring relevance to these episodes, not that we just spit out random things, but things that we've worked on and had to work through. So we've gone through, one of our most popular episodes was our episode on mental load. That's about like who's remembering, to book in the dentist appointment, who remembers what the kids' allergies are, who's remembering, where we're up to in the food process and who's taking in what sort of food and all this sort of stuff. It's the load, the unsaid things. So I gave an example that, I was trying to grow in this area. So I'm like, cool, I'm going to go do the groceries. I'm going to do the groceries for Amy. Amy, what do we need to get? And I'll go get it. And that was putting a mental load onto Amy rather than actually helping the situation. I just created a different situation. So
I had to come up with the grocery list.
Yeah, Amy had to come up with the grocery list. I did the shopping. That was great, but I'm still putting that mental load onto Amy. So there's another area we wanted to discuss today. So there's different loads. So there's the practical load, there's the emotional load. But today we want to talk about another load that plays out in relationships called
the social load.
The social load.
Social relationships, social lives. It's a load that is often unrecognized, I think. It's not necessarily something that you hear as a trigger word or like a trending word, but you will probably have seen it play out because every relationship navigates their social lives and their friendships, that community area of their life differently and has different dynamics that play out. And we've found dynamics that have played out for us. We've also heard and been in communication with our friends who have had it play out totally differently for them, but it is a factor and something to be aware of. So we wanted to talk about what happens when you're in a relationship and the social load is not balanced.
Well, before we jump into that episode, into that topic, would you rather...
Boom, boom, boom.
All right. I'm just having fun with these buttons. So first one, would you rather your partner claps every time the airplane lands? I giggled at this one. Or your partner hisses at people who cut in front of you in line?
Ooh, I actually like both of them a little bit. Yeah, but I'd rather you clap when we land.
Yeah. I had you in mind here. I'm like, you would get so anxious if I got frustrated with someone.
If it was like out of control, especially if it was a really intense situation. Yeah, especially if I was like, that person could really hurt you.
I think I'm the clap one as well. I think because the clap one is embarrassing. It would be, but I got distracted. I had to go get the spray bottle because Ferguson was nearly bumping over the camera. So anyway, if I didn't finish this, I'll finish it now. I think with the hisses one, it just is the airplane one, the clapping is embarrassing. The other one is like tense. And tense is more, I don't like tenseness. Yeah. Like I prefer embarrassment than tense.
And the hissing one could escalate.
Yeah.
Plus the hissing one is a negative, whereas the clapping one is kind of funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Quirky, yeah,
that's a good point.
And not offensive to anyone.
All right, next one. Would you rather always feel like you're about to sneeze but never do, or always feel like you have a single hair stuck in your eye? This is a hard one.
Having a hair in your eye is not fun.
Nearly sneezing and not sneezing is not fun either.
I don't know.
I've got an answer. I would rather a sneeze. I sneezed earlier. And there's a bit of a sneeze that's enjoyable. Like the feeling that I'm about to sneeze, you're like, oh, this is kind of nice, but it's annoying, but it's kind of nice. Hair in the eye, terrible. This is annoying. So I would prefer the sneeze.
I think I totally agree with you. I don't know what part of the sneeze is slightly enjoyable.
Well, like when you that feeling, like when you
No, I know the feeling of
because
it being enjoyable.
I got this question down before I actually sneezed, so I was actually super aware of me sneezing, and I
just really enjoyed the moment.
Well, it's not that I really enjoy it; it's like this amazing experience. It was
Sounds like you liked
that
it.
feels kind of cool.
I wonder if it's the relief that happens after a sneeze that
I mean,
is
that's
like,
good
it
too.
triggers the feeling. Yeah, I think
I just enjoyed the whole moment.
in terms of a pain scale, 100% sneeze, but I'm wondering if you could cover an eye that has a hair in it and relieve the pressure, because having to always sneeze would make you be like distracted constantly.
Yeah, once I got a piece of metal stuck in my eye when I was grinding, and that you had to get it picked out. It was a whole gross thing. But then I had an eye patch, and it did relieve some.
Yeah.
It was better, but you kind of, what you're saying is lose an eye or nearly sneeze.
But forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
So you, like, if you put an eye patch on, yeah, it will relieve it, but you're losing an eye now.
It also depends on at what point of the nearly sneeze you're stuck. If it's like, then you can't do anything.
Well, it's not that you have to do that face thing. Yeah, I think you do that face thing because you're you're embracing the sneeze. You're getting ready to do it.
If it's just that tickle in my nose, then yeah, definitely the sneeze.
All right. Would you rather have a constant 2-second delay on everything you hear, or a constant 2-second delay between your brain telling your body to move and it actually happening?
I think I'd rather the delay in moving. Because I just get into a rhythm of planning around it.
Look, I have hearing problems as it is, and it's extremely frustrating. Like, I feel like I've already got a 2-second delay and trying to register what people have said. It's really annoying.
The only thing with the moving one is it's more dangerous. Probably more instances where you need to move immediately than...
Yeah. Let's just say you're in a perfect world where there is no danger.
Then yes, the moving one.
Moving one. Would you rather have, this is the last one, would you rather have a clown horn go off every time you sit down or have a sitcom laugh track play every time you stop talking?
The laugh track.
Yeah, laugh track? Yeah, the horn would be too
funny.
intense. Yeah,
I'd work it.
Yeah.
The clown horn would
you'd actually just line up your end of your conversation to have a punchline.
Punchline would be the end of my sentence. But the clown horn, I think you'd have to explain it every time you sat down and be like, "It's not me. It's the horn."
Yeah,
that somehow plays.
It's the horn. Yeah.
Anyway, good ones. We've been nailing these would you rathers. I actually really want to make sure we're getting them out to you guys because I want to hear your answers to these things.
We actually really appreciated it from the last episode. We had some people write back to us and saying what they would pick out of these. So if you're listening, do that. Write that in the comments if you're on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, I think you can still do comments or socials or whatever.
Anywhere.
Send it to it. We want to know.
Yes, we do. Even if you want to just DM us the answers because you're too embarrassed, do it.
Do it.
All right. Well, let's dive into this social load element. The reason we go through these, I want to call them mental load topics because it is a part of a mental load. It is part of mental load. It's so relatable. And like Blair mentioned earlier, it was our best performing episode and best episode with feedback because it's just the mental load one was because it explains so much of what goes on without being spoken. And so that's why we really like to highlight all these different kind of facets of how it might play out. And the social load one is specifically relevant to us. We've gone through it and we're still going through it because we're still relatively new to this area and we're still relatively new to our new church and just a few other things like that we still have kind of a fresh perspective on the social side of things. So I think it's a really important one, but there's a few ways it plays out for people. And like I said, it's different across the board, but there's a few different kind of angles it might be playing out. So one is the practical social load, similar to mental load, meaning practically one of the partners carries the burden of maintaining arrangements to catch up with people, maintaining their kids' social lives, responding to invitations for things, being the contact for planning events, managing, especially when you have kids in the mix, remembering kids' friends' names, remembering kids' friends' dynamics, dietary, like all the stuff practically that comes into having a social life.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes, like for me, I would fall into this trap quite a bit because, when you were having kids and you weren't working, like in my head, I think I was naturally like, well, you'll take care of that because you're not working. And then I had this year where I was staying at home with the kids and you were working. I'm like, oh, hold on a minute. This is not the same. Like me staying home with the kids was working.
Yeah.
So we had to really work through, well, you still take a brunt of a lot of stuff, but we share on different loads, we share on different ones, right? So like you will take most of the social calendar, especially with the kids and things like that, where I'll take mental load over food and what we're eating or whatever else. So we have those conversations going through, but we need to start having those conversations. And I really took it for granted until I was able to experience what you were experiencing, staying home with the kids.
And certain people will find it more natural to just fall into those roles, either because of who they are and their personality and their preferences, or because of their situation. So like you said, when I was home with the kids, I was actually the one that would go out most of the time with the kids or be interacting with friends. You didn't have as much free time for that. So it's not a bad thing. It's not to say, oh, it's not working well if one person's doing more than the others. The reality is it's never going to be fully balanced. And so it's not about having it perfectly balanced. It's about that conversation.
And it's about being aware too. It's about being aware what it is. So for example, for me, I now have a tool to check in. It's like, Amy, how are you going with the social load? Like, is this too much? Like, if I start seeing Amy getting overwhelmed, and so if I'm not actually checking in to see how she's going, then you're just going to be overwhelmed. Yeah. And so it's giving you the conversation, the tools to work through that together.
And a big one for us, probably the biggest way that this played out was when it came to, not so much anymore, but when it came to social dynamics, I carried the weight of a social dynamic a lot more than Blair did in terms of tension or pressure or making sure people are happy or making sure I'm saying things the right way. That was a big concern for me. And so one of the practical ways that was overwhelming and is no longer that big of an issue is I would kind of own that process for my own social dynamics and my own family. And that would include planning things, inviting people to things, making sure I'm communicating what I need to with my family. And then there was times where I would then be doing the same thing for your side of the family. And then I'd just be like, I'm too burdened with making sure everyone is happy. And I think there was a lot of mental health stuff going on with that too. But that was a practical way of it's not just that I have to do that. It's that then I'm like carrying the burden of making sure people are happy. And so then we were like, can you respond if it's your family or your friends? Or can you communicate this thing that's probably super simple, but just communicate it because it's weighing on me a little bit more. So that was a practical thing for us.
It was understanding what each other bring to it, right? So there'll be some conversations that we need to respond to where Amy's like, oh, it's just shutting me down. Like I know what to say, I just don't know how to say it. And then I'll say it. Like I don't have issues as much as like just getting it out there. But then I go take it back to Amy. I'm like, all right, cool. So you struggle with that. So I've got to this point. Now I need you to make sure that I'm not offending anyone in being too blunt, right? So it's that team effort that's just one example.
That's how it's played out for us. Like we said, it's not going to be that way for everyone.
Yeah.
The other twist on the practical social load that could be playing out as well is one of the partners not feeling freed up to have their own social life.
Yeah.
Again, probably plays out a lot when you have kids and probably more so with mums that feel like for whatever reason, there's lots of reasons it could be, they are not free to have time to themselves or to grow that side of their time. And I know the guys at Dad's Group have spoken a lot about this as well, that they didn't feel okay asking for time because of everything going on.
Yeah. So it's like, we call it dad, and there's going to be mum guilt too, but we're dads, right? So we make it relevant to ourselves, but we call that dad guilt, where it's like, well, I feel too guilty to go out and socialize because you've been at home all day with the kids. Like you go out. And this was definitely my tension when we had our first kid. I was like, I didn't go anywhere. I went to work, came home, and that was it, because I just felt so guilty that you were stuck at home all the time. So we really prioritized you going out and things. And I didn't do it. And over time, that became harder and harder.
Yeah. So you might be finding you carry the burden of planning it more, or your partner carries the burden of planning it more, or you might be feeling like you're not freed up to even plan anything. So you're pulling back. So that's one way, is the practical side of social life. But this, I think, is the more complicated side of it, which is the in the moment social dynamics or social load. So in the moment of socializing, there's an imbalance in the load carried and the tone that's brought to the table. So this might be playing out like you go out with friends and your partner doesn't engage, or you feel like you have to carry your partner through the social engagement, the social connection, because they're withdrawing themselves. They don't come at all. You go out and your partner stays home. They don't even kind of come on board with the stuff that you've planned. They don't bring you into conversation. So you could be going out and your partner is more comfortable with this group of people and they kind of leave you floating by yourself. You're not really brought in, or they're not caring for your social needs in that moment either. And it also might play out where one partner has become the other person's entire social life. And I think this is the danger zone with this load because it causes so many ripple effects where your relationship is out of balance in terms of social connection or social load, and there's a inappropriate amount of dependency on the other partner in one way or another. So either to make you comfortable in a position where you're not comfortable, or just to fill their entire relationship needs that they have. And that's not healthy. So those are two kind of ways to look at it. The practical, what's going on practically, or the actual in the moment social dynamics that are at play are not balancing well, not healthy, not thriving. So what we did when we were planning this was looked for a Reddit story. I went to look for a Reddit story, or a few Reddit stories actually to talk about, and there were just too many.
Really?
Yeah, there were so many, and all of them valid and all of them were relatable, which is honestly the opposite issue to what I normally have, which is trying to find the right specific one. And so I decided I got one Reddit story and we'll read through it, but there's so many and it just is telling to me how much social dynamics play out in relationships.
Yeah.
How much of a need this is for a conversation. I'm going to read it and then I want to hear Blair's reflections before we discuss it, just your immediate response to reading it. So the title is, My Husband's Antisocial Ways Are Making Me Resent Him. We just got invited over to some acquaintance's house for the 4th. We know these people through my sister. I thought it sounded like a fun day. I hesitantly told my husband to see if I could convince him to go. His reaction was what I expected. He immediately said no and said I could find a million other things to do. I've been dealing with this for 20 years. He gets mad if I invite our neighbors for dinner who are our age and we get along with very well. Every single time I want to hang out with people who aren't his family, he gets irritated. I need friends in my life and I feel like he hinders this. Short and sweet. Or maybe not so sweet, but short. Short anyway. What are your thoughts on this scenario, babe?
My thoughts just go towards scenarios. So I know of people that have been in this as well, right? Where, one partner is usually at home and just that's all they want to do. And the other person just ended up leaving because it was just it was just too much like that. It was just this drain. It was this, I need this in my life, but the other person wasn't willing to give it. And then the response was, well, I'm leaving. So it's sad. It is very sad. And it's not that those people were bad or anything else like that. It was just that they loved being at home. Like that was just where they wanted to be all the time.
I don't think it was just that though, because I think there was mental health.
Oh, no, for sure.
There's
Absolutely.
So many things that sit behind.
Sorry. And yeah, exactly right. But that's just where my mind first went like these scenarios where, okay, they were great guys, but just wanted to be at home.
Yeah.
But then you go into, if you want to dig into that though, of the why, like, I was chatting with them and everything, and it was so much more behind the why, but it just, it was just, that's where they were.
I think it's a common dynamic that plays out, and it's a symptom of more. And it doesn't even necessarily look like a symptom. I don't know if people, so in this situation, for example, he might not, and sort of sounds like he's not aware of what is holding him back from those things. I doubt that he genuinely just never wants to go out for a healthy reason. I love being at home and I would prefer to stay home, but I definitely don't never want to go out. And the times where I am resistant to going out, I can tell is because I'm in a bit of a depression, or I'm just low, or I'm overwhelmed, or I just can't be bothered, or I'm anxious about what's going on. There's a lot of things that pull me back from the social things. And yes, there would be ones that genuinely I can't be bothered doing that.
Yeah.
But if it's every time outside of just his family, I thought that was telling. He would do it with his family and that's it. To me, I'm like, oh, immediately that makes sense. His family's like so comfortable to him that they don't really count the same way that other social dynamics might. There's got to be something more that's holding him back. Yeah.
And for those that have been following with us for a while now, you would have heard us talk in great lengths about our job with dads group. So it's about it's essentially working with dads on that perinatal period, so before birth and after birth of their baby, and how many dads actually go into isolation, right? So 1 in 10 dads suffer from postnatal depressions. 1 in 5 mums suffer from postnatal depression. So it's a lot more common in women than men, but it's still there, right? And for a lot of men, what we would do is go into isolation because that's easier for some reason. When we're struggling, we're more likely to isolate. We remove ourselves from situations situations, and that could be work stresses or family dynamic stresses in regards to, what's my identity now that I'm a dad? Like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that looks like. And I can relate to a lot of these. When we became parents, that was genuinely a big struggle of mine. It's like, what do I do now? I can't do the things that I liked doing before because it costs too much, right? Or it was,
or the time was too much.
The time was too much, or it was actually more of a danger. And you take risks differently when you become a parent.
Yeah.
And for me, again, I isolated myself. I removed myself from being social. I removed myself from everything else other than work, and it took a toll. I didn't get to that point, I don't think, but it was definitely still there, and I see it so much in men. It definitely happens with women too, but again, I'm just speaking from a man's perspective, and the conversations that I have regularly with men is this is a common response to external struggles and internal struggles. Sorry.
Yeah. We've seen it too with like my dad, for example, as he got older, really just his social life shrunk. And I've seen it a lot in older men. You can see kind of the more extreme play out of it versus women. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen that way, but I think there is something that along the way gets out of balance and then becomes too hard. And maybe they haven't necessarily looked into what it is. Like, there's obviously a reason for him to not be engaging. But the other side of it is the way he's reacting to his wife when she's trying to get him to engage or trying to include social things. So she says he gets mad, he gets irritated, he seems dismissive and frustrated when she's listed these things. So it's not just that, oh, this is sad, look, he's pulled himself out of social things. It's actually also he's letting that affect how he's reacting to his wife. And that's going to be also impacting her social dynamics as well, because she's got to then explain why he's not coming. She's got to then build relationships on her own. She's got to then explain to him who these people are that she's spending time, or the stories she's heard. She's got to relay all of that to him if he's going to be brought into her social life at all, because he's not there. And so there's all these things that then play out that cause division between the two of them if they're not careful as well.
So one thing I think is quite interesting, and there's a lot of research around this too. So from the journals of gerontology from Oxford Academy, don't ask me how to say it properly. I don't know. There's lots of words. But something that's quite interesting is this research highlights that as men age, their social networks become more restricted, while women's networks are more diverse. So older women are significantly more likely to have bridging potential, meaning they act as the link between different social groups like neighbors, distant family, and hobby groups. Men, by contrast, often have redundant networks where everyone they know is also known by their spouse. So it's very reliant on their spouse. Yeah. So according to research from the University of Chicago published in this place, men are far more likely to have spouse-only social lives. This means if the marriage ends or the spouse passes, the man's entire social world effectively vanishes overnight.
Yes.
So it's pretty intense. And again, this is something I've heard before, and I haven't dug into it enough, and I want to dive into this more because I even see it, like even around me, I'll see it. Like I was even seeing it within myself. I was becoming more and more isolated. You're becoming more and more social, and I see it with a lot of men around as well.
Which there are so many reasons why this is not ideal.
Yeah.
So many different things are affected by that.
Mm-hmm.
Pulling it back a little bit, and you've kind of touched on some of this. How does this develop, for one? And I want to remove too much of the generalizing element of it, because it could be for you as well, regardless if you're an older man or not. So this is relevant for everybody. But how does social isolation or social imbalance develop over the years in a relationship? And it starts with fatigue, parenting. That's one of the ways, like we spoke about. I think that's probably the biggest one. I would be really fascinated to see a study of social lives before, during, and after parenting, and how it's impacted and how it's connected. New environments, so anything new, all these new things. When you're a child, you do have new environments, but you've got a lot of systems around you that are consistent for the most part, unless you're a missionary kid like me, that help you maintain friendships. And even just the system of your parents, who will be kind of imposing their own social lives down, that helps keep it consistent. Once you're an adult, it's all new. You're building all of it. Even if you're in the same town, there's a whole bunch of new stuff. People leave, people get new jobs, you get a new job, there's new neighbors, there's like all this new environment, and every time there's a newness, you have to rebuild, and that can feel exhausting, and some people don't step up to the plate on that. Probably the biggest one, and it probably ties in under all of these things, is insecurity. The way you view yourself, the way you think other people view you, the stories you're telling yourself, those things impact how you present in the world in far greater ways than I think any of us give them credit for. And it can start from childhood. It can be a story you tell yourself from childhood. It can be an accurate story that's based off something that truly happened, or it can be a story that is based off your read of what happened. And those things sit in our brains and they become self-fulfilling prophecies in some ways, because as we've said, the things you tell your brain, it focuses on. Yeah. And so if you've told yourself growing up that you're not very good at friendships, or people don't really like spending time with you, as you become an adult and then you're adding in all these new dynamics that also make it difficult, you could just double down into that.
Yeah. Something that I'm thinking through now, and this is true for myself, is like male relationships can be very tiring because they're not safe. So a lot of masculine relationships, about like, especially in Australia, is really tearing down. But for you, I don't get teared down, right? So I can see how, like, in people's relationships, like for men, well, their whole relationship becomes to their partner because their partner is the safest person in their world emotionally. Safe, yeah. So they're not as likely to be teared down emotionally by their partner for a lot of people. And again, this is all speculation. I don't have the research behind this, but it's just me putting all these dots together. I want to hang out with you more. I feel safe to hang out with you. The reason why, when I was struggling socially, I would just hang out with you all the time because that was safe. Like, you were safe.
Yeah.
You know, the anxiety of what are people going to think about me, or what are they going to say about this thing? Like, I would so worry about all those different things. Like, you know, I know these people have these sort of expectations of how I should look or behave or whatever. And not that women don't get this. So it's not minimizing this for women. I'm just saying I feel like this is something for men that is impacting this for them. So we talk a lot in my line of work too about how in a lot of Australian masculinity culture, it's really emphasized you do not show weakness, right? And the script is changing here. The culture is changing, but this is still what a lot of men deal with, is you don't show emotion. So you don't show tears, you don't show weakness, because if you do that, you're weak, you're bad, you're all these sorts of things. And so for a lot of men, it's like, well, I want to feel what I feel. And if I go out, I can't feel that. But if I'm at home, I'm safer to feel that. Or if I'm with you, I'm safer to feel what I feel. I don't have to put this mask on. Again, women, you have your masks, and I completely acknowledge that.
Have them. Embrace them.
We're just talking about, again, for this, we more likely see it with men. Research shows it plays out more for men, and I'm just trying to unpack the why more.
Partially, it might not feel safe because of like people deeming you as weak and blah, blah, blah. The other side of that is all of you are so afraid of that the other part that doesn't feel safe is people feeling uncomfortable when you show emotion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like it's not just everyone's so horrible every time I talk to them. It's actually like not only do we get worried about feeling judged, but we also then feel awkward about people feeling awkward about emotion.
Or over appreciating it. It's like, oh, I've shed a tear in front of these people and they're like, oh,
overly,
he's done and all. It's like, oh, dude, just let me feel what I'm feeling, you know?
Yeah. Whereas I think, generally speaking, female relationships are a lot more emotionally vulnerable and open. And even you were talking about how, you know, people have, it's not strong, like that kind of perspective of like it's weak or whatever. I think girl relationships, generally speaking, you connect over the thing that irritates you the most. Or like we had this conversation recently where I was connecting with the wife because we were complaining about this thing. It's not even an interesting story, but we're just like, oh yeah, that's so frustrating. And she's like, yeah, that's so frustrating. That happened to me too. And then we kind of connect over that. Whereas you wouldn't sit there and be like, oh, that's so frustrating. And it's just kind of this like more, I don't know how to describe it, but it's just a more like practical, you would say it, you'd be like, this thing happened to me. And the other one would be like, bummer. And that's kind of
the end of the conversation. Men more typically connect over hobbies, I feel, or interests, not negatives. Yeah. So it's like, you know, yeah, I think that's it.
And like, to be clear, it can be negative, like really negative, but it's not always negatives like whiny, nitpicky, or like toxic. It's almost like problem solving outside of my body, and then the other person's problem solving outside of theirs, and we're verbally problem solving together. Whereas you guys, if it's practical, I think it's easier for you to be like, oh, this is what I would do. So I've heard you come alive when you're talking about trades or like practical things about fixing things or cars or like gym, like these things that kind of a little bit more clean cut. and
Yeah.
practical, but not so much the emotional dynamics that are at play.
Emotional stuff as well, because, you know, for women, you've seen other women, you grew up watching other women do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Men don't do that naturally.
Yeah.
And so, not that we can't, but it's like, you know, it's so funny. I'm meeting with a bunch of organizations at the moment on men's mental health stuff, right? And like the biggest challenge we have, there's amazing resources, amazing programs, all this sort of stuff. The biggest challenge is not the content, it's getting the men to rock up, you know, because we don't naturally do that. It's like you suck it up, you just move on, you know, whatever. So getting men to actually take their own self-care seriously or working through those emotions, I think that's why we don't talk about it as much, because we don't really know how to work through it.
Yeah.
We don't really know, what do you talk about?
Yeah.
It's like you share something, it's like, oh yeah, that sucks. What am I supposed to do now? Yeah. So it's we haven't really had that modeled before. Like you don't see that and you kind of take on what you see, right?
I don't think you guys need to connect the same way that we do.
No.
I don't think it's the same with the mental load thing, right? Like there will be natural definition between unique people with different natural preferences. And so it's not necessarily about men need to learn how to do this the same way women have, because it doesn't work that way.
No, it's not. Yeah, we're not saying, all right, men, women do it this way and it works for them. We need to do the same thing. And not at all. What we're really trying to draw out though is like, are you even aware that you're doing it?
Yeah.
Are you even aware that you're in that place? And, you know, and if you're a partner of someone, even though it might not even be a man, like, right. So we're really focusing on men here, but it's not a men issue. It's an everyone issue. This is more likely in men. So your other partner is like, well, cool. If your partner is stuck in that position, do you know how to have that conversation to help them out? That's the point that we're talking about here, where we're talking about gender stereotypes here and typical gender behavior, is just to try and highlight some things that could help you with that conversation. So women, are you having those interactions? Are you putting yourself in a position to have those conversations? Because we see that working really, really well. Men, do you have a hobby? For me, that is a huge one. Like I have not had healthy hobbits. What? I haven't had. I have never ever
hobbits.
Never once. Not in my life. I got a button for that. Never. I haven't had healthy habits since having kids. Like I don't do sport anymore. I don't do these things. Recently, I've been putting some stuff in place and it's been amazing. It's great. I'm feeling energized. I'm feeling like my cup is filled but that was effort to actually do that. And it took me so long to work out like what is it that I actually like doing. And the big thing is that you've helped me with over the years though is like, all right, cool. Well, you're not there yet, but what can you do now? And it was a lot of us in that time. You didn't have that approach of like, Blair, sort your stuff out. You're socially awkward or you're socially isolated. Now go be social. It wasn't that. It was like, cool, let us go for a walk. We literally started with, let's do a 10-minute walk. And it was just getting me out of the funk of that and then growing and exploring that together rather than an accusation. And that was really, really helpful. And so from my word rant there and talking about hobbits randomly, that I just really needed to recap why we're having these conversations and why we're sharing about these things, because it's helping equip you to have the conversation, but it's also helping to equip you to identify that within yourself.
Yeah.
Where are you at? Evaluate that, sit on that, and then move forward.
Yeah, and like you pointed out, the topic of men and isolation is a specifically relevant one for us just because of the work that we've done. And we've talked a lot about it. So that's why it comes out a lot. But yeah, it's actually, it feeds into the next reason this might develop, which is mental health. Huge reason. And tied into a lot of these things. Mental health, often one of the things people kind of look at is withdrawing from social life. So that is a huge sign that something might be sitting in a way that's not helpful or healthy for you mentally. And so the big thing that I think is a good test for if this is a healthy social life or not for you and for your partner is, what's your norm, your baseline? What have you been doing your whole life? What's the kind of like, this is who I am and this is how I interact. If something's not functioning in that way anymore, that's a sign that you should have this conversation. Some people will never have had a healthy social life, and so it's worth exploring that too. But like after our kids, Blair's social approach was drastically different to what it had been when we first got together. And so it was very clear that there was something unhealthy going on there. And it was a trigger for us to have that conversation and explore those things. And so whenever something out of character is happening with your partner, it's a lot of the time easier to see it as the partner watching the other partner than it is to see it about yourself, especially if you're not in a good mental space to kind of work through what's happening for yourself. So if you notice something out of character for your partner, it is a good trigger to be curious and have that conversation and explore it gently and start to figure out what is not working and what needs to change for it to work better. So mental health, huge reason that people start to have imbalance in their social lives. Burnout, it's all connected. Feeling awkward and feeling judged, I think that comes right under insecurity, just the awkward vibes. And I am a more homebody person than Blair, 100%. And I'm much more comfortable in social circumstances than I was before. But I'll still find, like, there's just times where I'm like, oh, I just feel uncomfortable because I'm like, my social battery is completely depleted and I'm tired and I feel awkward. So that can also be it. And the other thing is, and you mentioned this before when you were reading that study, the other reason that social withdrawal might happen is because your partner has always handled it. So if you are like that study was talking about and your partner has always handled your social life and it's that dependent relationship on your partner, and suddenly they're not handling it anymore because they've passed away or they're unwell or something's shifted with them or you're no longer together, then your whole social foundation has crumbled with that one person, which is why it is such an important conversation to have, why it's such an important thing to be in a balance and be aware of so that you're setting yourself up and your partner up in a way that is sustainable and healthy long term.
I want to share a snippet of what we've been through in that area because we've had to work through a lot. And even though we do this podcast, we don't want the assumption that we're just speaking at people from a place of, data or something. No, we speak out of a place of experience. Like I've had probably the longest standing mental health struggles and probably the deepest and most full on. But all of those things have affected Amy so much, because it is a teamwork thing. So we take each other's stuff, we work through it with each other. So anyway, for me in this setting here, I was very much like, I just lost so much confidence in who I was, right? I remember when I was younger, dude, I loved running parties. I loved socializing. I was out nearly every night, like not partying, just seeing people, right? I was just always social. Just loved it. I just thrived in that. My battery was just filled from being around people all the time. And then I got into like a leadership position and we started having kids and COVID as well. And I just started becoming more and more isolated because I didn't know where I sat with people. And so there's that element. And then you become a parent and you're just tired all the time. Or like I said, we were prioritizing you getting out because it was just all new. And I was getting out. I was getting out for work. And so we wanted you to get out and just to get out of the house, right? And to get your battery recharged that way. But with that too, because I wasn't filling up my own cup, in a way, I was just getting more and more low, I guess, and just, again, losing that sense of identity of what's my life when it's just me, when I'm just having fun. What does that even look like? And then COVID was a whole other level in Melbourne with the lockdowns. But then leaving that season, that's been a 4-year journey for us of breaking into that. Like when we moved out of Melbourne, I just felt so awkward. I genuinely felt so awkward. And I just didn't know how to have conversations anymore. I didn't know how to relate to people anymore because with the lockdowns, you just lost all interaction. So it was this big social anxiety that creeped in. I didn't know how to actually break out of that. And it did take intentional effort, something that Amy's really been encouraging me with, not pressuring me. And that's a big distinction there, is that, why am I waiting for everyone to invite me? Why don't I do what I was already doing? Like I was the person that would invite everyone to come and do something. And I stopped doing that. And I stopped because I felt so awkward. I felt like I was rocking up to these things. I'm like, man, what did I just say? That was so weird. And I'd make these random jokes and stuff. And I just felt so weird. But yeah, that was where I was at. And that's why I want to encourage people to, reflect. If you're feeling like you're in a similar place, like reflect, like, are you there? Why is it that you don't want to leave the house? Why is it you don't invest in friendships? It is hard. It genuinely has been a hard 4 years.
And part of me when you're talking is like, well, actually that time where you were quite insular was probably very important for you because back when you were super social also was masking a lot of stuff.
Exactly.
Like avoiding,
Yeah.
thinking and internal reflection and,
Yeah, true.
and being. So it's not one's good, one's not. And it's not that every season needs to look the same, because
Yeah.
it won't. When you have little kids, it just will not look the same. And it probably shouldn't look the same, because it's not the same. And so it's not about trying to make it be like, oh, it's not the same as it was, go back to that, or to diminish what you learn in the process, because that's super, super valuable. But it's more about your intentionality and what you're aiming for and what you're putting in place, and having the conversation, being aware of it. I can understand when you're tired and you're working full time and you've had kids and you're getting older and you just don't like what people talk about and you just can't really be bothered and you got things around the house you like doing. I can understand why it would feel like it's not worth it, because it does take that energy. It might not feel important to you and your partner might feel like they're enough, but it is so important. It's something that takes that energy for a good purpose. It requires discomfort for a really good reason. Almost everything good in this world comes through discomfort, a season of discomfort. And so yes, it might feel uncomfortable, it might not feel like a priority, but the thing is that these things that start small become big divides. It's not just a divide in terms of, oh, look, you're going to get to this age and you're not going to have any friends, because then the person's like, well, what's the benefit of, like, I can take that, I'll own that, I just won't have friends when I'm older, that's fine. It's actually the divide that starts to set you and your partner on a course where you're not only not connected socially, but you're dividing and bringing space in and driving a wedge in that actually means your relationship is less and less healthy and intentional and intimate, because you're not engaging externally. You're not getting your cup filled. You're either totally dependent on your partner or you're running out on empty and reacting to your partner like this person in the story, because you haven't got anybody inputting. And that is going to be setting up your relationship for a lot of difficulty down the track. You're missing out on one of the core human needs. So yes, relationships are hard. A lot of people might be listening to this and be like, yeah, but that's so much easier said than done. You can't just be like, no, I'm going to have relationships, magic, they just appear. We've walked that journey so much over the last few years. It's not about having a bazillion really, really good friends. And it's not even about having regular, deep conversations with other people. It's just about being in community. It doesn't have to start with finding someone who's going to have a deep, meaningful conversation with you. It can be as little as having a conversation with someone that you walk past on the road, or someone who's checking you out at the grocery store with your checking out your groceries, not checking you out. Don't talk to the people checking you out.
No,
at the
they're
grocery
creeps.
store. That won't end well either.
No.
So the cost of carrying the practical load is isolating, it's frustrating, it can be disappointing, it can be embarrassing. If you're anyone like me that you struggle with dynamics and making sure people feel okay when your partner is withdrawing themselves and they're not coming to the table socially, it's also really awkward, because then you have to explain why they're not here, why they didn't want to join you for dinner. You have to go to things by yourself, or you have to give your apologies, that sort of stuff. It becomes very complicated. That's one of the costs. Removing yourself socially, your perspectives narrow. You become an echo chamber. You just are in your own world with your own interests and your own perspectives, and you don't have those voices other than your partner and your family members inputting into that. Your confidence can quietly erode, like we just explained with Blair's experience. Your partner's carrying more than they should. You can become overly dependent in your relationship. Small insecurities grow louder. You start to shrink in areas that once gave you life. You hold yourself back from things that actually could really fill your cup and really give you a sense of purpose. And over time, that withdrawal doesn't just protect you from discomfort. It actually also makes you more uncomfortable in a longer term way. So when you are looking at this in relationship, it's just about finding a balance. It's just about finding something that's going to work and bring you guys closer together bit by bit to where you would like to be in the long run, where you'd like to be as a couple, where you'd like to be as individuals, and where you'd like to be as a social community with other people as well. So we've got some practical tools that we can work with. One is the practical side of the mental load element of this, which is just make it as practical. If you're having difficulties because one person's carrying too much of that load, practically speaking, of organizing it, keeping up with people, remembering people's names, all of that sort of thing, make it as simple as you can. If it comes down to needing to literally write out a list of the things that come into your social load, like scheduling play dates, remembering birthday parties, buying birthday presents, messaging your mom, whatever the thing is, list it out if you need to and say, this is what I'm dealing with this mental load. Can we share this load a little bit? Get as practical as you need to. Strip it back until it's manageable so that you're not carrying everything on your own. So that's one way. Just break it up into sections. A really practical way especially in the early days when you've got little kids, is trading off nights of the week or something like that, being like, you go out with your friends this night and I'll go out this night, and just like making sure that you're factoring in time, similarly to how we suggest with date nights together, factoring in time for each of you to have time with your social community and freeing that person up so they can do that without any kind of guilt around that. Putting social plans in the calendar, I'm so bad at this. Like I'll be like, yeah, we should catch up with these people. And we say like every month for a year, and we never actually put it in the calendar.
Yeah.
And just schedule. If it's 3 months ahead, schedule it there. If that's as far ahead as you need to do it because of like your life and family life, which is what we find, at least it's in the calendar, and eventually it'll tick around. And then your kid will get a virus and it won't work.
Yeah,
you won't be able to have dinner with them. And agree on what works for you now. So you really liked a lot of outdoorsy, adventure type hobbies. And it wasn't going to fly for some of those to be a regular thing when we had kids.
Well, it's really funny actually that you bring that up, because it's really, I'm not going to dictate this for Amy. Okay. So if we look at like what we do for each other's birthdays, right? Amy's birthday present every year is she goes and has a day to herself. Like for me, that's my worst nightmare. But for Amy, like if I do what I think Amy needs without consulting her, I might not be helping the situation. I might actually be fueling it. So for me, Amy organizes, we go for a walk or something, like, you know, in our little swampland that we have up the road. We'll go for a family walk. I'm like, I love that. But for me to do that for Amy is just going to she's not going to enjoy that. That's not going to be her thing. So really the conversation, you have that person in mind, right? So if Amy's stuck in isolation, then I'll be like, all right, where are you at? So having an understanding of what is actually fueling that. What is it? Anxiety? What is it? Tiredness, which is all legitimate. What is it? And then walking with Amy through that, or like, what is something that seems achievable for you right now? Not this grand thing, but what's achievable for you right now? And then it's a matter of, but again, it's like you helping Amy come up with that herself rather than saying what she needs. Because otherwise, I'm just not going to be able to.
Yeah. And there have been times where you specifically have been like, hey, I was thinking of getting this friend of yours to come around for this thing. Is that something you want? And I'll be like, no.
It's not an issue of the friend. No, it's just that Amy's not wanting to see a friend.
That's not what feels like it would help me right now. Yeah. So have that conversation together and have that conversation with your partner in mind. So there's also, like we've mentioned, all this stuff that goes on mentally with this kind of a dynamic playing out, the mental health side of things. And so when you're navigating that practically, there's a whole bunch of things to explore about why you're withdrawing. What is sitting behind that? And we're going to make a resource that you can run through these, because I've got a bunch of questions to reflect on. So talk about it is one of my things here. Talk about why have you withdrawn? Like we had so many conversations with like together when you were going through this social awkwardness about what's happening for you. What do you feel in social times? Like even down to like, what questions do you ask people?
Amy is an investigator. Like honestly, like she will see a situation, and this has really impacted our whole relationship and even our family, right? There's a situation, and inappropriately too, like if I'm not in the mood for it, we don't go there. We don't like the attitude or response. It is what it is. That's something that we don't accept. It might be like, it is what it is for now. Let's check back in tomorrow or a week or whatever. But we do revisit that because we want to make each other stronger, and we want to be stronger individually. Where we do that is by investigating. And that's just what Amy naturally does. So we've shared before, last week you would have heard me go on a massive rant about Amy's coaching. This is exactly what she does for her work, but she does this naturally. This is why she's such a good coach, because she does it. She's like, I want to know what's going on. I want to know, because then we can actually address it, not just leave it as it is. And what she does is she works with me. She works with her clients. I'm not her client, by the way, but and helping us realize, no, we've got everything that we need. She just helps with that reflection of identifying the situation and identifying what you already have and showing you how you can walk through it. So it's absolutely amazing. If you want more information on that, reach out on our socials or on our website to find out more about Amy's coaching. But you just bring it to our relationship naturally.
Thanks, baby. Yeah. Well, and I'm going to bring it to you guys this week in the document that I'm making with a bunch of questions to ask yourself or your partner to explore what's going on. Because understanding that almost takes out I'm going to say 70% of the trouble. Just understanding what's going on frees you up so much. Then there's really practical things like if you are feeling anxious, but you're willing to put yourself out there, what are some things you can prepare yourself for before you go into those social environments to start to build back that social muscle? Things like picking one person you know is going to be there and one question you want to ask them, and that having that as your goal at that social event. And that's it. You don't have to have a huge conversation. Just have that one goal in mind, and then you can rest in knowing you've done that. So there's some practical things I'll put on there as well about you're ready to go. What do I actually do to prepare myself for that instance when I'm there to make it easier? And if you haven't had community in a while, and this is a really important one because a lot of people will be like, yeah, but where do I find friends? And I see this on the Facebook pages I'm on all the time being like, I don't know where to find friends, mostly the mum groups. It's so true. If you don't have a community that you can immediately think about, this is where I find friends, it is really hard. We are so grateful that we have church. That's a part of our everyday, every week routine, because that is an immediate community that it's not always easy. In fact, it's often not easy, especially in the beginning, to feel like you're a part of your friendships or growing a social dynamic there. But it is an immediate community that we have of a pool of people. School drop-offs, sports that you're involved in. There's a lot of communities that you can lean into a little bit more. And again, instead of setting yourself up to be like, I've got to find a best friend at soccer when I drop my kid off, don't lean into that. That'll just shut you down. But instead of just put a tiny little goal there. So I drop my kid off at soccer. Who's one person I can say hi to? Yeah,
that was one big one for me actually with church. Like I struggled, social anxiety, whatever. Amy put the challenge to me. Who's just one person you can have a short conversation with? And that's where it started. Was like, I don't have to try and make that best friend or meet everyone. I'm just going to start by finding one person. If your one person is someone that you say hello to and that's it, that's where you start and that's achievable and you grow from that point.
And the catchphrase that I've got for this all the time is that people love to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling awkward socially, just lean in. Like I sometimes I catch myself and I'm like, Amy, stop asking questions. Partially because of who I am, like Blair just mentioned before. But just ask them questions about themselves, and it almost always breaks the ice. Not always. Some people are really, really hard to get answers from, but at least you've done your best. That's a really good tactic for when you're going into places. And we're also going to talk on this document about how you raise this with your partner, because it's one thing to recognize this might be out of balance. It's another thing to then raise the conversation with your partner in a way that they're going to hear it. And the reality is a lot of the time with these things, you're not on the same page at the beginning. You're not both thinking about this topic and trying to figure out how to navigate it at the same time. This happens with us all the time. We talked about it last episode where we were doing the declarations process together. And we even were on the same page coming into that conversation in terms of the importance of it, but we weren't on the same page in terms of how we were feeling in that moment, ready for the conversation. And it just didn't work. So that's okay. But there are some ways for us to communicate about this that will help our partner understand the importance of it and help us to start doing that exploration with them to make the conversation alive. And it's going to be a lifelong conversation. It's going to be a long-term exploration of what's happening, but at least you're starting to soften that conversation between the two of you so you can work on it together. So that's the social load.
It's so much you can talk about this.
I feel like we could do 3 episodes on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So sorry about just like cramming in all the practical things quickly at the end.
We would love to hear from you. What's something that you got from this? What's something that we didn't answer? As we did mention, this is a massive, massive topic. All these mental loads, these load sessions, we always get so many questions. So write them in, because then we can actually address them specifically. That's a lot easier for us rather than painting a general picture, which is what we've just done. There we go. Thank you. So write into, I just understood what you said. So write in, what's a specific question that you have, and we will answer that. So either in our socials or the next episode. So write in, ask those specific questions, because we want to be getting the exact answers to you, not a generalized picture. So hopefully this has started the conversation for you with your partner or for yourself, but also join in this conversation with us. We want to hear from you. Write in.
Amen.
Brother.
Good chat.
All right. Awesome. Good chat. See you next week.